Looking to see what's happening around your home? Ring's battery doorbell helps you track packages and see who's at your door in real time. The Outdoor Cam Plus protects your yard at night with a wide field of view and clearer Retinal 2K video. Or upgrade to 4K cameras and doorbells with Retinal Vision for ultra-clear zoom and detail. Your door, your yard, your home. With Ring, it's protected. Shop cameras, doorbells, and more at ring.com now.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, President Trump saying, "Do not rush me. I have all the time in the world. Iran does not." Saying that Iran is the one who needs a deal right now. We can kind of sit back. We've got a lot of our military assets going in theater. And in fact, the USS Bush is now in the Middle East. It's in that area. It's the third carrier group. President Trump saying, we can just kind of sit back. Let's see what Iran does. Iran is all over the place. He used the description, they're fighting like cats and dogs, and said maybe they'll get their act together. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll end up killing each other. These, crazy foes that are there at the top of the Iranian regime. That wouldn't be a bad thing if they take out each other, worried who's turning on who and who's trying to vie for leadership and who is not. And then President Trump says, when things sort out, we'll be ready. I think he clearly is just sort of waiting at this point because he knows that he's got an economic chokehold on Iran. And a lot of it is tied to Karg Island. You may have heard us earlier talking where we were saying that Karg Island in particular, that's where so much of the oil exports go. Well, it's filling up and they got to start exporting oil. They're not going to have any place to store the oil. And a lot of people think that that kind of breaking choke point may happen in a matter of days up till like a week or two. That's not a long time. And President Trump believes he can bring them down to the economic flattening, not only from a military perspective, but an economic perspective. And all of those things, he says, will cohesively together at the same time be a master squeeze play. It's a really smart move because, first of all, so far, no U.S. boots on the ground. I think President Trump would like to keep it that way. He'd like to also be able to get weapons to the great Iranian citizens so they can rise up on their own. That would be great, but you got to do it at the time is right. And you got to do it when the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is also dismantled, or at least greatly, greatly diminished. And I'm not sure if we're there yet with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, because you got this guy, Vahidi, who's one of the generals there, who it looks like he is the guy who says he's in control. And in the meantime, President Trump can just kind of sort of sit back and wait. If they're getting crushed economically and President Trump believes that they're losing anywhere from $450 to $500 million a day, well, he can just kind of sit back and watch them crumble. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Meantime, also Hasan Piker, and we're going to talk about him later on tonight. This is the social media YouTuber, and Hasan Piker, this guy has come out and essentially said that Luigi Mangione, the guy who's accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson outside the Hilton Hotel in Midtown New York City, well, he's essentially saying that guy can understand why these things happen, sort of justifying the killing of the United Healthcare CEO, making it sound like it's sort of a social killing. Because of the problems with the healthcare industry, because of the problems with insurance, you can sort of understand why people are fed up and why they're frustrated. You can figure it out. You can understand that. What? That was a cold-blooded murder by a deranged man who had been planning it for a while, who was, between New York, they found him in Pennsylvania. This is trouble all the way around. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222, and you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Now, especially when you think about Luigi Mangione and you think about Hasan Piker. Hasan Piker is the guy who's been hanging around, remember, with Mayor Mamdani. He's also been hanging around with Chris Murphy, who is the senator there in Connecticut, the guy who said, awesome. It's awesome, I guess, that these ships have been able to pass through. That's not a problem whatsoever. That seems like a good thing. And so that's why he said awesome on top. Are you kidding me? Who is this guy rooting for, Chris Murphy? And who are some of these other Democrats rooting for? That's a big, big problem. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. So what do you think President Trump needs to do now vis-a-vis Iran? And what do you think of the fact that today the media, totally didn't get it? I love a lot of the things that President Trump was saying today in the Oval Office, because the media was like, when are you going to get this resolved? How much longer is this going to take? How many days is this going to take? How are you going to try to figure this one out? And he was like, are you kidding me? Are you absolutely kidding me? He was like, this is a ridiculous thing to say. It's a foolish thing to hear. How can you ask somebody who's in the middle of battle, how long is it going to take? Was he expecting them to come back and say, well, 3:00, maybe between 3 and 3:15 tomorrow, that's when things are going to end. And a reporter actually asked him this today, and I couldn't believe this one, guys, actually asked, can you see a scenario where you would use nuclear weapons on Iran? Can you imagine? First of all, there's no way President Trump would ever answer that. He would never use a nuclear weapon. But what an absurd, ridiculous statement. And President Trump fired back at them all and said, you know what? That is ridiculous. He must have used the phrase fake news maybe about 10, 15, 20 times today. I couldn't believe it. And he deserved to say it, because these comments were like, when are you going to be done? When are you going to be this? When are you going to be that? He was like, are you kidding me? Are you absolutely kidding me? I mean, it has just been a short time, between 5 to 6 weeks, and already he says this has been a victory, and a far longer, better victory, if you will, especially by standards of demolition to the opponent, than a lot of these other ones that have gone on a lot longer. And I want to play, this is cut number 8. And this is President Trump talking about, don't rush me, when a reporter said, hey, when is this going to end? And here's what he had to say.
How long are you willing to wait until you get a unified response?
Don't rush me, Jeff. Guys like you want to say, so we were in Vietnam for 18 years. We were in Iraq for many, many years. We're in for I don't like to say World War II because that was a biggie, but we were 4.5, almost 5 years in World War II. We were in the Korean War for 7 years. I've been doing this for 6 weeks. And their military is totally defeated. They're outside of the little wise guy ships. I call them the wise guy ships, the little boats that they have running around with guns in them. We'll take them out too when we see them. But their Navy is gone, their Air Force is gone, their anti-aircraft is gone, all of their anti-aircraft machinery is gone. Maybe they loaded up a little bit during the 2-week hiatus, but we'll knock that out in about 1 day if they did. We've done an amazing job. Their leaders are gone. Their leaders are all gone.
Yeah, their leaders are all gone. And in fact, he's like, I'm not really sure who's running the show. And the media harped on him for that one, too, saying, how could you not know who's running the show? I mean, what a ridiculous thing. You could tell. It's clearly a fractured government right now. It's understandable that things are probably all over the place. That's what happens in war. And yet they're like, wait a minute, you don't know when you're going to finish it. You don't know who's in control. What's going on here? Did you ever see them asking any questions at all like that of Joe Biden? No, Joe Biden, it was like, oh, he's great. Oh, Ukraine, no problem. Keep the weapons coming. No problem. I don't remember them saying, hey, is it ending tomorrow? There was no question like that. And yet this one, he is taking on a terrorist regime and they won't give him even like one iota of help. It really is reckless. And it just shows such a double standard, guys. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to John in Colorado on line 1. John, your thoughts tonight here on the Rita Cosby Show.
Rita, a friend of mine, her brother's an architect, and he was reading an architect magazine, an article in there about the Washington Monument.
Yep.
And there's a pool over there, the reflection pool.
Right.
So the pool is kind of falling apart. It needs to be rebuilt. So when Joe Biden was in office, he bid $321 million to restore the pool, and it would take 5 years. So Trump is going to do it in 2 weeks, and it's going to cost $1 million to restore that pool.
Oh my God! So wait, I have to look that up. That's amazing. So you're saying it was $321 million under Joe Biden, right?
It was going to take 5 years.
And 5 years, and now is Trump fixing it because of all the July 4th and 250?
Yeah, they're going to restore the pool.
Wow, and he's spending $1 million. I would say that's a better value. So what the heck happened with a $321 million price tag? That was years ago when it should have been cheaper.
I know. It's just the corruption that goes on. And I think everybody in New York, you need to vote for Bruce Blakeman for governor. You got a chance out of all this. So
yeah, and also he's the overseer, by the way, of Mamdani. The only way there could ever be a change with Mamdani is a change in the governorship, because Kathy Hochul sure is coddling Mamdani. That's for sure, right?
Right, that's right on. Well, look that up about the reflection pool at the Washington Monument.
I will.
There was something on the internet, too.
John, thank you very much. Great point. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. That's fascinating. $321 million compared to Trump spending $1 million and getting it done a heck of a lot quicker. And I bet you a heck of a lot better. He's a builder. And that's why he's frustrated also with the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, because he's like, why is he spending X amount of money on a building? It doesn't need to cost that much. That's ridiculous. We could be saving taxpayer money. And then Democrats go, oh, it's not nice to beat up on Jerome Powell. Well, I'm sorry, if you're spending, like in this particular case, if things are pretty similar in terms of reconstruction, and one is spending $321 million, the other one's spending $1 million, and one of them is actually a builder who has some of the most beautiful buildings in the world, guess what? That's kind of the place to go. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Well, President Trump today could not have put it in more stark and more crystal clear terms about what's at stake in the battle there against Iran. I want to play, this is cut number 5. And in cut number 5, he talks about the fact that he feared that this could be the ultimate if Iran got nuclear weapons. Take a listen. This was so powerful.
I think that there's nothing worse than a nuclear weapon that takes out one of your cities or two of your cities or three. I think there's nothing worse than a nuclear weapon that's going to destroy the Middle East, including Israel. I think there's nothing worse than Europe being under attack by people that have missiles now that reach Europe. As you know, they don't reach us, but they reach Europe. But they will reach us at some time, probably the not too distant future, unless we stop them now. I think there would be nothing worse than having nuclear holocaust in Europe, London, Paris, various places in Germany, all targeted. No, what I say is you can't let them have. I don't think it will happen, by the way. I really think we actually, it turns out that we are drill, baby, drill. And it turns out we're producing a lot of oil, and they're buying the oil. They're going to Alaska. They're going to Texas, Louisiana. And our guys have done a fantastic job. We're putting out right now more oil and gas than we ever have in the history of our country. And one other thing, there are more people employed today in the United States than ever in the history of our country.
Drill, baby, drill. And thank goodness at a time like this, it is drill, baby, drill. 1-800-848-9222. And we will take your calls when we come back here on The Rita Cosby Show.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And let's go to your calls, guys. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Larry in Staten Island on line 2. Go ahead, Larry, your thoughts tonight.
Good evening, Rita, and God bless our servicemen and women all across the planet.
Absolutely. I agree. Bravo to that. And you know what? Your thoughts, because I feel like, Larry, when I hear a lot of the Democrats out there tonight that are criticizing President Trump and criticizing the military, they're undermining Trump. That's the whole goal. They're undermining the U.S. and they're undermining the U.S. military. Your thoughts?
What else would you expect? Here we have Hakeem Jeffries complaining that we've already spent $20 billion on this conflict. Well, first of all, we got to get rid of the old munitions that we have that we're letting off right now anyway. But I've never heard a Democrat complain about the waste that we're spending on education and these other silly projects. They'll never say that.
Oh, yeah, they don't. You're right. They don't care when it's their projects. And also, by the way, on Ukraine, there weren't that many Democrats, if any, complaining about the money going to Ukraine. I'm not saying I'm a big believer in supporting Ukraine, but I didn't hear them talking about a price tag there like, oh, this is not good. I didn't hear the Democrats complaining there. Did you?
No, never. You'll never hear a Democrat complain about money that they're going to spend that's not coming out of their pocket. Believe me, never. This $20 billion is a drop in a bucket compared to what we've lost in education and other programs. You realize, Rita, we got an education system in this country. Johnny can't read, Mary can't spell. It's bad. It's really bad.
It is. You're right. And we should be spending more money on American education. By the way, I don't know if you heard the last caller, but Biden spent $321 million. Trump is spending $1 million on fixing the reflecting pool. There's $320 million.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hey, I like your new RAV4.
Thanks, yours too.
What does RAV stand for anyway?
To me, it's the Remarkably Advanced Vehicle.
Really? To me, it's the Runway Approved Vehicle for its amazing style.
What about Remarkably Adaptable Vehicle because of its versatile cargo space?
Or Really Admired Vehicle?
Oh, or Really Awesome Vehicle.
It really is the Recreational Activity Vehicle. The stylish 2026 Toyota RAV4 Limited. What's your RAV4?
Suffering from dry, tired, irritated eyes? Don't let dry eyes win. Use Sustain Pro. It hydrates, restores, and protects dry eyes for up to 12 hours. Sustain Pro. Triple action dry eye relief.
Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Madison Heights, Michigan, where there is a story of heroism where the police department officer saved a 72-year-old woman who was out dining when things took a turn and she started choking on cheese at the restaurant. About 7 o'clock, the officers were dispatched to Charlie's restaurant to report of a customer who at that point sadly was turning purple. Once they got on the scene, the officers found the woman. She was unconscious and no longer breathing effectively. Very scary. Officers lifted the woman into a seat position and immediately gave her soft back blows, performing the Heimlich maneuver on her. They took turns administering abdominal thrusts, helping to keep her upright and stable. Officers were able to dislodge the obstruction as the food popped out and the woman began breathing again. She was then taken to a local hospital as a precaution, but was discharged already that evening. The police chief said that he's so grateful that his team got out there so quickly, acted so quickly, and they didn't hesitate, that the training truly kicked in. Bravo to our great men and women in blue. Well, President Trump is describing the Iranian Navy, what's left of it, as, I love this, he kind of uses a little bit of a mafia term. Yesterday, they were describing them as a bunch of kind of ragtag pirates like Johnny Depp and the Pirates of Penzance. And today, I guess it's a little bit more like Goodfella and The Godfather. Take a listen to the way President Trump describes what's left of the Iranian Navy.
Years. I've been doing this for 6 weeks. And their military is totally defeated. They're outside of the little wise guy ships. I call them the wise guy ships, the little boats that they have running around with guns in them. We'll take them out too when we see them.
I love that. The wise guy ships. Because we all sort of know what that means. And we know that that's sort of like a wink, wink, nod, nod, the wise guy ships. Like you're going to see Joe Pesci on one of the boats pulling up there. But that's indeed the way he sort of makes it sound. And then President Trump, oh my goodness, today, boy, did he go after big time the Iranian military, but he also really went after the U.S. media. This is quite incredible. Because the reporters were asking him, hey, when is it going to wrap up? Do you know what time? Are they going to use nuclear weapons? Are you going to use nuclear weapons? It was just the craziest questions. And listen to how Trump handled this when one of the reporters said, hey, I need to know the time frame. What kind of time frame are we looking at? And he said, listen, back off, buddy. And then he lodged his typical fake media response. This is a doozy. Here you go.
What do you say to the American people who question how much longer this will take? Obviously, you know that they are having higher...
You're such a disgrace. Did you hear what I just said? Vietnam. How many years was Vietnam?
I understand, sir. But
how many years was Vietnam?
So
well, I did my... I took the country out militarily in the first 4 weeks. I took it out militarily. Now all we're doing is sitting back and seeing what deal. And if they don't want to make a deal, then I'll finish it up militarily with the other 25% of the target.
President Trump is like, I can't believe you asked me that question. At another point, he's like, failed New York Times. Then there was a question from somebody at CNN. He's like, CNN with one viewer, you guys are asking me a question? I've seen your reporting. I mean, it was classic Trump. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Gail in Pennsylvania on line 2. Gail, your thoughts tonight.
Hi, Rita. I really do think that the Trump administration will be successful in economically choking off Iran. And I say that because despite hearing everything about Iranian officials being 12ers and a death cult, they have thousands of close relatives living large and lavishly here in the United States, and obviously with money. So, I think the economic choking off will work.
I do too. I think, obviously it takes time. And I think because this regime is a bunch of fanatics, they are a bunch of lunatics. It may take a little more time than a normal situation. I think a lot of other countries would have already said, I surrender. But clearly, this regime is going to feel the pinch. The problem is when you're dealing with fanatics, Gail, and this is my concern. I am always, honest with you guys, that when you're dealing with a regime that's just a bunch of true lunatics, true believers, and I always kind of describe it like the Japanese kamikaze pilots who knew that it might be a one-way trip when they were coming into Pearl Harbor, but they didn't care because they wanted to die for a mission. That was their And these people are sort of like that too. So I think it's going to take a bit longer. There's not, that many like pragmatic people. I think some of the underlings, once they stop getting paid, and many of them already have been from what we hear, in the Iranian IRGC and the Iranian police forces. I'm not talking about the leadership, but some of the others. A number of them apparently have not been getting paid. And maybe at some point they're going to say, this isn't really worth it. I was doing it more for money than for ideology. But some of those that are so attached and so stalwart on the ideology, I think it's going to take a while. It's not going to be instantaneous. They're going to keep going. And there may be these guys who, till the final breath, are going to keep firing, just because you've got some real lunatics there. I mean, these are people who, it's the death to America. It's the death to the big Satan and the death to the small Satan. And look at the way they've handled even some of their allies, their neighbors of late. I mean, look what they did to UAE. They fired 1,000 of them. I mean, that's a lot, Gail. That's a lot. What do you think?
I think that there is a chink in that lunacy, that lunatic armor, in the sense that why would they have their relatives living large, close relatives, not distant, in the big Satan, if they were so totally into the death thing, So I do think they care more about materialism than we've been hearing, and that they want people to know.
That would be a great thing. And I believe that there's a lot of them like that. I think there's some stalwarts. But so what do you think? Where is this headed? I mean, do you think it's going to take a few weeks, a few months? What do you think, Gail?
I think it's over. And these little mosquito boats will be, blown away just like we do with the cartel boats. And they're removing mines now. And I think it's going to be fine. I really do.
Yeah, I do too. I feel like it's going to be fine. It's going to be a little bumpy, short term. They're going to probably try to do some things if they could to try to disrupt. Desperate people do desperate things. But I have a lot of faith. I have faith in President Trump, like obviously you do too. Gail, thank you very much. It's really great to hear from you and get your perspective. Thank you very much. Let's go to Tim in Queens on line 1. Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, hey, Rita, real quick about Iran. And I just wanted to mention, it's really sickening and disgusting how the Democrats, most of them, it seems, are actually rooting for us to lose. They want us to lose. But what also occurred to me today is that now you even have some people on the so-called right people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, who also seem to be rooting against us and want us to lose. So I just, wanted to ask you, what happened to these people? Did they go off the deep end that they're also rooting for us to lose? They're rooting for Iran to have a nuclear weapon?
What do you think, Tim?
I think they went off the deep end. I think they lost their marbles. I don't know, or either that or they got paid off by Qatar or something.
Yeah, I don't know the background, but what I will say is, their comments have been, I also think, destructive. I agree. And I also think that them going, I think a lot of their philosophy, it seems like what Tucker Carlson seems to be saying is he doesn't think there should be any war against Iran. And I contend that this is a noble fight. What do you think, Tim? I think Trump's efforts is a noble mission. Your thoughts?
Yes. I had my issues about the way it started. I would have rather they went to Congress first, but no, it is a noble mission. Iran is an evil regime. They slaughtered their own people. They are the number one state sponsor of terrorism all over the world. They attacked our embassy in what was it, 1982 or 83. They attacked the Marine barracks. They killed hundreds of U.S. Marines. They took over our embassy in Tehran. This is a country that is the number one state sponsor of terror. And, yeah, it is a noble fight not to let them get nuclear weapons. And I can't understand for the life of me why someone like Tucker would be rooting for the enemy. And he seems to be, I don't know, he's becoming like an apologist for radical Islam or something.
He seems to have flipped a lot. His basis seems to be anti-war at all costs. And it is really surprising. And look, we all want to avoid war. I believe President Trump vehemently wants to avoid war. He's given Iran time and time again. He's giving them another chance right now as we speak. You can't say he's not a warmonger. And I think that they really, there's the handful of them who really just feel like, wait. He said he wasn't going to get involved in any war. But then on the other hand, like you and I are just talking, what are you going to do? If you know that somebody is that close, a regime that would use, I believe, the nuclear weapon if they had it, and you know that they're weeks away, and there was a lot of intelligence that was the case. Steve Witkoff said they were telling him this is what we have. And by the way that they're acting to their neighbors, you know darn well they would use it. And that's the frightening thing. So you have to stop that at all costs. And I do believe President Trump made a million different efforts to try to avoid even any military action in Iran. And so far, I think he's done a really good job. It's a very tough fight, but I really applaud him for doing it. And I wish everybody, to your point, on all sides of the aisle would support it, because it's in the best interest, not just of obviously the Middle East, but Europe and America. If there could be a nuclear-free Iran and also a truly change in regime. And if some of these individuals that really are pushing for freedom within Iran could rise up and be empowered, I mean, that would be an incredible moment. And I said this the other day, Tim, that if Trump could do this, this truly would be the greatest accomplishment of his presidency. And I'm talking both terms. He's done a number of these peace deals and other things. Nothing would match this. This is generational change. So everybody on all sides of the aisle should be rooting for him and rooting for America and rooting for peace. So, and I agree with you. I think, it's clearly a lot more on the left that are critical of him, but there are some on the right. And I just hope that everybody gets behind the president and this noble mission that you and I both agree with. Tim, thank you very much. Good call. Thank you. Let's go to Alice in Ohio, line 2. Alice, your thoughts tonight.
Hi, Rita. Thank you for giving me a moment. I'm totally behind President Trump. What disturbs me, yesterday I was listening to Hasan Cosby, and one of your regulars said in a very thoughtful tone of voice, we're watching what happened in 1931 happen here. And it made me think, Speaker Gingrich is also a historian. He said history repeats itself every 75 years. We have people living here who have an audience who say we deserved, with a Middle Eastern surname, we deserve 9/11. Dearborn, Michigan has been taken over. It's something I don't remember the name of the town in New Jersey. The politician said it's the New Jersey capital of Islam, and these people are getting away with it, and we're watching it. And I know Donald Trump he's going to do it. He is going to do it. And we have people who are elected to office on both sides who are criticizing him. What they need to do is get behind him solidly. This is a disgrace that people who are elected to office, maybe they don't agree with his politics, but he was duly elected, and it's making us look bad. This man is wonderful. He approved a drug that cures deafness. Did you hear about that?
I saw that with the mother and the little boy today. That was really beautiful. I mean, that was amazing what he has accomplished with Regeneron. I mean, it really is remarkable. And Alice, I like what you're saying because, and listen, I've covered politics, as you guys know, a long time. And I never remember it being so nasty that you wouldn't be rooting for the success of getting rid of a terrorist regime. It's almost, I can't think of almost anything almost more despicable almost to be against an American president who's trying to do that. And President Trump today, he was asked in a lot of different ways, Alice, by these reporters, like, what's the timetable? What's the timetable? And he was like, please don't rush me. I'm not doing this for political reasons. You guys are worried about this. You're worried about that. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do for America and for the world, for world peace. And I truly believe that is his motivation. There's no doubt. because politically, he could have just sat back and stayed at home and not worried about, and gas prices would have stayed low. But today he was even asked about gas prices. This is how candid he was, Alice. And I found it very, I've known President Trump a long time. He just kind of puts it right out there. And he was asked, what about gas prices? Are they going to stay high? And he said, well, they may for a little bit. He's not saying, no, they're not. He's saying, yeah, they may for a little bit, but here's the cost. What's going to happen is we can get rid of a terrorist regime. We can get rid of the world sponsor of terrorism. And then as soon as it's done, which will be short term, then things are going to snap back. And I believe very much they will. The markets are already showing it's backing Trump. It's responsive to Trump. And let's not forget, you guys, under Joe Biden, there was $4 a gallon gasoline. And there was no war. There was no war. You got a guy who's taking on a terrorist regime right now. I think we can handle $4 gasoline for a short time. Nobody wants economic pain. But if you can get rid of a terrorist regime, to President Trump's point, Alice, it is worth it. Alice, thanks so much. You always have so many great points. We love hearing from you. Alice, thank you very much. And everybody, we're going to continue your calls after the break. 1-800-848-9222.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And coming up in the next hour here on the Rita Cosby Show, wait till you hear some of the comments from Democrats in the last 24 hours. And of all people, John Kerry, who was talking to the Iranian regime behind the current administration's back. Remember that? Well, now he's criticizing the regime. He was part of the whole appeasement trail. We'll get into that. And also Hasan Piker, too, coming out and defending essentially Luigi Mangione. This guy has no limits. And this guy seems to be coddled and embraced by the likes of Senator Chris Murphy, Zoran Mondani, and a whole bunch of others. Also, Ken Griffin now saying, after some of the crazy comments that Zoran Mondani has done, remember that video he did in front of his house? Ken Griffin, now the major economic executive, of course, with Citadel, who has a big property now in Florida because Chicago drove him away. And then you got Mondani posing in front of his second home in New York. And now he's essentially saying, you know what, maybe after this not so nice tax policy of this new New York City regime, maybe I won't continue a big project that I was planning in New York. Good job, Mondani. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Joaquin real quick in Pennsylvania. Go ahead, line 2, Joaquin.
Good evening, Rita. I actually want to address one thing Gail was saying about, how these people are willing to die. But quite frankly, no, it's not the hierarchy in Iran. It's not the mullahs. They're the ones who preach to the underlings that it's their mission to die, and to achieve martyrdom. I really don't think that they want that for themselves.
Well, I think some of the IRGC guys will, like this Vahidi guy, who seems to be sort of the new guy. He's the new he was the commander of the IRGC. I think he does. I think some of the other ones don't. But I hope you're right, Joaquin, right? Because then it's easier to break it, right?
Exactly. And a little leftist minions should take a lesson from the people of Iran when they supported the overthrowing of the Shah and the mullahs coming in.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. There are some definite lessons from history we can all learn from.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?